Hey watch friends, today we're going to take a look at this latest offering from Nodus. This is part of their Sector series, and this is the Pilot version 2. In case you missed it, we recently did do an unboxing of this model, so if you want to check out the packaging, everything it comes with, there is another video. You can check that out in the description. As far as the basic materials, this does come with a nice box. It's a cardboard box, but it's a dual drawer construction. It also comes with a booklet as well as regulation card, and we'll talk about regulation here in a moment. All of the Nodus watches do come with a 2-year warranty. As for the specs on this particular version, this has a 38mm case, and that's roughly from the 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position. The bezel does actually protrude slightly, so this is coming at 38.8mm for the bezel. Let's get a little better look there. As far as the lugs, this is a strap change friendly 20mm. The lug to lug is a nice versatile 46.9mm. And the overall thickness is only coming in at 12.8mm, and that is including this crystal here. As far as the crystal, you can see this is a nice bevel edge. You can get that good distortion going there. And this is a flat crystal. However, it is actually a single dome. So we'll look at that throughout the video, but you can see it does get some nice playful distortion as you move around. While you're seeing some reflection there, this does have inner AR coating, and you can see some of the blue coloration and hue that this picks up. The movement is a Seiko NH36, which if you're not familiar with that version, it's basically the same as the NH35, except this does have both a day and date complication at the 6 o'clock position. Otherwise, it's going to share attributes with the NH35, which means it's going to be a relatively low beat movement, but it does have hacking, hand winding, it's extremely reliable, just a good all-around movement. What's unique about this, Nodus does actually include 4-position regulation. We looked at that in the unboxing. They even include a card with it that shows you how it stacks up, but it's regulated to within plus or minus 10 seconds in all 4 positions. So that's an excellent little touch, especially given the price point. As far as water resistance, this has 100 meters or 10 atmospheres of water resistance. Size to my 6.5-inch wrist, this particular one is coming in, and this is on the V2 style bracelet, at 143.2 grams. I found that's very close. It's within about 2 grams, actually slightly heavier, but about 2 grams of what I got on the version 1, which we'll look at shortly in the video. As for the pricing, this is coming in at $475 for the versions that have the stainless steel bezel, and $500 for the one that we have pictured here today, which would be 3 different dial variants. But speaking of, this does come with 3 dial colorations. You have the blue that we're looking at today. You do also have a black version, and then you have a copper or a salmon color dial that will also actually look at the version 1 of that. Each of those variations is going to be available with either a stainless steel or a DLC coated stainless steel bezel. Taking a closer look at the dials, one of the first things you're going to notice is it does have a very layered dial. There's a lot of depth going on to this one. In the center, you're going to notice that it has a sand textured finish to it. As you move out to the perimeter in the next stepped up layer, that has a satin finish. It in many respects does present kind of like a sunburst, but to me it's more of a satin overall finishing, so it has a nice sheen and luster to that, especially depending on how the light is hitting it. As you move your way out, you can see at the 12 o'clock position, you do have printed dial text, and this says Nodus, and then has a color accent sector line up there as well. Moving further out, you can see applied markers. And then on the farthest perimeter, you're going to notice that it does have a nice sloped rehaut, and that rehaut does have individual minute and second markers all the way around. One of the best features, though, is we already mentioned that day and date configuration at the 6 o'clock position. Superbly placed there, one of the best incorporations and integrations that I've seen, and additionally, it's very functional. One of the things I really like with the V2 is this actually lost the accent colors, and I find it adds better legibility, so keeping that white text, whether it's on the dark or the dark text on the lighter versions, I think it really pops a lot more, and I like that. Shifting over to the hardware, you'll notice that the hardware for this, the handset is going to be what I would describe as kind of like a sword, and that's going to be for both your hour and your minute hand. All 3 of the hands are going to be dual colored, so they at the base are going to be on this particular version a black, and then as they move out for legibility, they are housed within white. As far as the second hand, it does have an arrow tip now at the end, which adds for better legibility and more Lume application. The length on these, you might have noticed, in my opinion, is absolutely spot on. The hour comes just to that inner ring. The minute hand comes right out and just touches the outer ticks there, or outer hashes, and then the second just glides right over that. Superb legibility, excellently done, great choice in lengths there. As we already talked about, it does have applied numerals all the way around. You'll notice that the 12, 3, and 9 position are going to be larger, though it does have uniform numerals applied, with the exception of the 6 o'clock where you have the date window. As far as the overall application for this, you'll notice that there is Lume applied, and that is going to be actually on the bezel pip, as well as all the numerals and the handset. The Lume I have found on this to perform decently. It's not the best, it is a C1 application. I found that it is sufficient Lume. I think that it works well, and to my eye, it seems to work a little better, though it could be in my head, versus the V1, despite the fact that this has less surface area, so I'm not sure if it has more application, or if it's just a placebo, or possibly the darker dial that's creating that perception. But overall, I don't think this is the strongest Lume, but it does definitely get the job done. Shifting over to the bezel, as already mentioned, this is available in 2 configurations. You can get the one like we're looking at today, which is a DLC coated stainless steel, or you can get a raw stainless steel that we'll see on the V1. The bezel is controlled with friction, so unlike some other watches rather, where you would have a unidirectional and it would be with leaf springs in there, this actually has just a friction tension. And as you can see, and I mentioned in the unboxing as well, this one comes pretty stiff out of the box. It's much more so than the V1 was, though it could just be the sample of one, which this is a loaner into the channel, or alternatively, it could just be that it needs to loosen up more with time. The bezel configuration, you'll notice that it does have numerals all the way around, and this is in a countdown as opposed to a dive configuration, which I think is in keeping with the Pilot style. Because this is friction, it does have infinite adjustability in both directions, and of course, as you saw, is bidirectional. As we previously saw as well, it does have a Lume pip at the 12 o'clock position. Shifting over to the case in this is what I would describe as kind of like a flowing arch shape overall. It has a little more of a continuous swoop than typical with just downturned lugs, though the lugs are certainly what I would call a downturn configuration. The case finishing is going to be a mix of brushing, as well as it does have dual chamfers at the top and bottom that are going to be polished accents. Very nicely finished, well applied. I think it's very clean, especially for the price point, so I've been pleased with that. As we move to the perimeter of the lugs, you can see this does have drilled lug holes. And then at the top of the lugs, you can see it does have nice compound cuts where you have that chamfer on the outside, as well as the inside with mirror, and then it does transition from a horizontal brushing on the side of the case that carries over to like a radial brushing at the top of the lugs. So nice use and application of different finishing there. Shifting over to the crown side, you can see that there is no crown guard, which I think is in keeping with the Pilot style as well. Speaking of the crown, this is a very traditional aviation or Pilot style crown. You can see where it has that cut-in shape for it overall. And this is coming at 7.3 millimeters. So it gives a nice grip as well, and I think it gives a good visual presence, especially because it does taper down at the base of the case. So it doesn't seem particularly large, but at the same time gives you a lot of surface area and grip. And speaking of grip, this has excellent milling in there, very easy to grip a hold of. The configuration is a screw down, as you can see there, and it is going to be signed as well. This is not loomed or anything though, but it does have a signed configuration, and the rest of the case is of course mirroring the flip side. Shifting over to the case back is a screw down construction. It has what I would describe as kind of a Venn diagram of concentric circles there with their pattern. Additionally, it does have nice clean application of text all the way around the perimeter, and that is, I believe, either all milled or lasered into the back. But as mentioned, that is a screw down construction, and it does have radial brushing all the way around. Shifting over to the bracelet is one of the big updates for this version 2. Previously it was an H-link, now you can see it's either a 5 or fine link as you want to call it. The bracelet comes from 20 millimeters at the case and does taper down at the clasp to 18 millimeters. It's going to have female end links, just as the prior H-link version did, though you can see with these fine couplers in there, I think it incorporates and integrates a little better. I wasn't as crazy about the way that it draped and hung with the H-link version, whereas this, I think especially for smaller wrists, it has less protrusion there, and I think it just gives an overall cleaner appearance. So I like this incorporation much better. Additionally, as far as the articulation, I really think the last one I couldn't complain about, but this one I think is a big step up in that area. It really drapes quite well across the wrist. Very comfortable to wear. Excellently done there. The finishing is going to be brushed all across all surfaces, and the links are held together with screws. The clasp is going to be a traditional fold over with a double pusher construction. It carries through, and it does have that brushing as well as the mirror polish accent chamfers on the exterior, and it is, as you have noticed, signed there as well. Once you open it up, the bridge is going to be a milled construction, though it doesn't go with through milling, which I find, of course, varies. It does add a little bit of weight for that, though I'm sure it's relatively negligible, but it does give a little more of a flat surface for contact with your wrist, which some might find to be more comfortable. The clasp itself does have 3 micro adjust holes as well, so you can get a good fit. All right, so now that we have a better feel for the watch and kind of what to expect there, let's go ahead and look at some comps. We've already alluded to it numerous times, but this is to give you an idea of the copper dial variant in real life. So this version, the Flyer, as it's called, with the copper or salmon, as you want to call it, it really color shifts a lot for this. And overall aesthetics, you can pick up on some of the differences here. The second hand, the overall layout, the border of the markers, the bracelet, of course, is going to be a huge difference there. But otherwise, it's fundamentally going to be largely the same watch. Do note that the bracelet, unfortunately, is not interchangeable. So if you like this style, you'll need to get a V2. Unfortunately, that will not work on the V1 of that. But I'll look at another video, or I'll do another video rather, to look at these more as far as the differences there. But that gives you an idea. Additionally, here it is next to another somewhat unconventional pilot. This one's reminiscent of like the Oris. This is the RZE Fortitude. This is coming in at 41 millimeters, so you can see it does have a good bit more dial presence overall between the two, but a very different style, but just gives you an idea how they stack up. Stainless construction, titanium construction, a little larger for dial presence, smaller, but then it does have the day-date incorporation, numerals versus just having traditional markers. So it's kind of pick your poison. You can't go wrong with either of these. They're really excellent watches. If you want light, if you want more of a traditional stainless feel, if you want the complications, to me, that's going to help you to make your choice between them. All right, so now that we have all that out of the way, let's go ahead and wrap things up with my personal view of some of the positives, the critiques, as well as the overall summary. First, for the positives, the dial depth. The dial depth with all the layers that it has, as well as the mixed finish application, I think is fantastic. From the rehot to the inner concentric circles, really think that's great. Legibility, as you would want on a Pilot watch, is just superb. On this dark coloration in particular, as well as with the addition of the borders, really great contrast, very easy legibility in all respects, perfect length hand, can't go wrong. The bracelet, as already mentioned, is excellent articulation and is very comfortable, so that's great as well. The day-date incorporation, it's one of my favorite on any watch I've ever seen. I can't readily think of any that I like more than this, so that's fantastic. The crystal, I like a single dome crystal. I think it adds a fun dynamic to it where you have the bezel on the exterior, so you get a little bit of playfulness there. You've got the flat top, but then with the underside being a single dome crystal, it does give you that little bit of distortion and some cool effects that you have going on. So I like that. I think that was a good choice. The fact that the movement does come with regulation, for position regulation, is I think a really nice touch as well. And then finally, as far as the sizing. For me, the sizing on my 6.5-inch wrist I think is perfect, but I think it really will accommodate larger wrists as well. So some might scoff at around the 38, 39 millimeter case size, depending on how you want to look at it. But overall, I think most will be satisfied with this unless you really like bigger watches or have a very large wrist. Overall, though, I think this will please most buyers. Some of the critiques, as we already talked about a little bit, there's not a whole lot to complain about here. The Lume, I do think, could be punched up. It could endure a little more, and it could be a little brighter. So I wouldn't mind seeing that application kicked up. As far as the bracelet, I neglected to mention earlier that this does actually have quick release spring bars on the back, and that's kind of a pro and con here. Some people find they dig into wrist. I haven't felt that at all. But the one thing that I have had happen is you do want to be careful. This bracelet can actually slip past that, and it can kind of get wedged in there if you go to set the strap down or the bracelet down. So just be aware of that. If it bothers you, you can change this out easily enough. It's not a big deal. Just put traditional spring bars in, and similarly, it does have drilled lugs, so you're still going to have easy enough changes there. So minor item. And then finally, the case back. The case back, while the downturned lugs do come in alignment with the case back, I think this one might be a hair, as far as the profile, thinner than the V1 was. However, the case back itself, I'm not sure if the movement limitations or the water resistance makes it have to be a little thicker, but I would love if that could be slimmed down. I think this would be perfect. I think it would nest a little better into the wrist as well as diminish the overall thickness. That, for me, it's something I don't know if it could occur, but it would be really nice if they were able to do so. All right, so there you have it. So really wrapping things up, where does that leave us? At the end of the day, I think this is pretty much everything you could want in a Pilot watch. I think it's a great aesthetic. I think it very much has that Pilot vibe. I think the sizing's versatile. The crown fits the configuration, the numerals, the legibility. Overall, I think it's just an exceptionally well done watch that still has loads of style, but exudes that Pilot feel. So there you have it. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, please do hit that like button. Additionally, if you haven't done so already, please do smash that subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated and helps the channel. Thanks for watching.